right, 7th graders, we are continuing to work on Objective 4 practice from rational number arithmetic. We have a few links to do here. All right, we need to combine all of these terms. So before we combine anything, we're going to rewrite it using our rules to simplify it and make it really obvious what the signs of the numbers are. So we have -2 plus -3 plus 4, good so far. Now we see right here, 2 negatives. Our rules tell us 2 negatives right next to each other with no number in between. Make a positive, so we write that as +3. Then we don't like to subtract because that can be confusing what the sign of our last number is. So we make it plus that negative we put in parentheses with the number, and now we're good to go. One thing we can look for are some numbers that will cancel nicely. Okay, first thing I see here are a +3 and a -3. Those are called a zero pair, and they're called a zero pair simply because they add up to 0. The same number with opposite signs is going to equal 0. Okay? Then we can take what we have left. I'm going to rewrite it. We have -2 plus 4 plus a -5. And we'll just take these numbers 2 at a time. Take the first 2. You might be able to do this in your head, but I'm going to go through the rules. We have a negative and a positive. They are unlike, so we will subtract. 4 minus 2 is 2. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 4 is bigger. It's positive. That's going to be a +2. And then we add -5, right what we have left. Then these two numbers, they are unlike. So again, we're going to subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 5 is a bigger number, it's negative, so that's going to be a -3 for our final answer. We'll plug that in. Good. All right, let's try another one. This has less numbers, so that's kind of nice. But let's see. I thought for a second maybe the 9s would cancel, but it's a -9 and a -9. They're both negative. That does not make a zero pair, so they're not going to cancel. Okay? But I might take those two first anyway, because 9 plus 9 is pretty easy. I see that they're both negative. They're like, so we will add. 9 plus 9 is 18. Keep the original sign, which is negative, so that's going to be a -18. Then I have 14 plus a -18. Those are unlike, positive and negative, makes them unlike. So I subtract. 18 minus 14 is 4. And then I keep the sign of the bigger number. 18 is bigger, it's negative. So the sign of our final answer is negative, giving us a -4. And we'll go on to our next link here. Okay, we have to fill in the blank, fill in the missing value. Okay, what it equals is where we're going to end up. So we're going to end up at -3, which is right here, -3. And we started with a number, we added 6, and then we ended up at -3. When you add 6, you are moving in the right to the right, in the right direction, okay? So we added 6 and ended up at -3. So to figure out where we started from, which was the blank, we have to go to the left 6. So if we start at -3 and count 6, we'll know right where we started. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like we started at -9. And I could check, is -9 plus 6 actually -3? They're unlike, so we subtract. 9 minus 6 is 3. Keep the sign of the bigger number, which is 9, and it's negative, so it'd be -3. So yes, that does make sense, and it does work, that it would be -9. Good. Okay, let's try another. So even though 7 is on the left, the number that's by itself is where we're going to end up. So we're going to end up at -7, which is about right here. So we started with some number. Oh, and then we got some crazy business going on here. Okay, these two negatives, our rules tell us that two negatives turn into a positive. So that's just going to turn into a +2. So something +2 equals -7. So again, when you're adding, you're going to the right. So we went to the right 2 and ended up at -7. To figure out where we started, we have to go backwards. We have to go to the left 2. So if I go to the left, that brings me to -8 and -9. So again, our answer is -9. And we could check to see if that makes sense. They're unlike. We subtract. 9 minus 2 is 7. Keep the sign of the bigger number. 9 is bigger, it's negative. It's going to be a -7. So our blank is -9 again. Excellent. Okay, next link. Which situation can be represented by 5 minus 8 or 5 plus a -8? So would Zach add 5 cookies to the cookie jar? Then he took 5 cookies from the cookie jar. So adding 5 would be a +5. Taking 8 would be subtracting 8. So it seems like that would work. So we're thinking probably A is our answer. If Zach took 5 cookies from the cookie jar, that would be a -5. And then he took 8 more, that would be a -8. That does not match what we started with. And then the third choice is none of the above. So since A matches, the story from A makes sense with the expression. It's going to be A. All right, let's try another one. Okay, Gary buried a time capsule in his backyard so that the top of the capsule was 1.8 meters underground. Okay, we better draw a picture of this. Here's the ground. The top of the time capsule, say it looks like that, is 1.8 meters below the ground. So that would be a -1.8. It's below ground. He covered the capsule with some dirt and then buried a sign labeled "Dig Here," 1.2 meters directly above the capsule. Okay, so right here at 1.2 is a sign that says "Dig Here." Okay, the following equation describes this situation. What does -0.6 tell us? Okay, so this would be how far underground the time capsule was. So I'm going to draw this picture a little bit bigger. Here's our ground. Here's our time capsule. So it seems like we start going down. And that would be -1.8. But then he fills it up with dirt. So we actually go up 1.2. Okay, and then this is where the sign is. So what is -0.6? Okay, -0.6 is the space between the ground and the sign right here. That's what's left in our equation. So we go down 1.8 below the ground, -1.8. Then we fill it up with dirt, so we go back up 1.2. Then what's left between the sign and the ground is still a distance of 0.6, -0.6. So the sign is buried 0.6 of a meter below the top of the time capsule. Well, no, we know the sign was buried above the time capsule because it said it in the story. The sign is buried 0.6 of a meter below the ground, the sign. That seems to make the most sense. None of the above. I think it's B. The sign was buried 0.6 meters below the ground.